One of Justice Brett Kavanaugh's accusers recanting her statement after Republican lawmakers continued to investigate the shocking comments made during his brutal confirmation process.
One of his accusers came out on Friday and said she never met him. It was a false accusation. It was a false statement, a disgrace.
Well, the Kavanaugh controversy has been energizing voters on both sides of the aisle. But will this development tip the scales for Republicans? Joining me now is GOP strategist John Thomas. Great to have you with us again.
Great to be here.
So as we begin our discussion, let's bring up what Chuck Grassley had to say in his letter to the FBI. He said, under questioning by committee investigators, this Ms. Monroe, Judy Monroe Layton was her name. She admitted, contrary to her prior claims, that she had not been sexually assaulted by Judge Kavanaugh. So we have that out there now. Will this galvanize voters as they head to the polls today?
Well, it's not too late. There still are, despite all of us feeling like we just are so saturated with information, there are voters that are going to be voting after they come home from work. And if you're unsure at this point in the game or you don't quite remember what's at stake, this will remind you, especially if you're in that GOP base. We saw prior to the Kavanaugh confirmation process a significant, almost 20-point enthusiasm gap between Democrats and Republicans. After the confirmation battle, the enthusiasm gap was non-existent.
Right.
And it was holding pretty steady, but it was waning in the last couple days. I'd say there were a 3 or 4 point gap. This will serve to galvanize and remind those Republican voters. And in so many of these races, congressional, gubernatorial, and Senate races, are in the toss-up category right now. They're margin of error, which means it's all about turnout. And if this issue gets broadcast today, which it looks like what we're talking about, it may get somebody who might just not vote to actually go pull the
Because it is interesting, back when all the Kavanaugh thing came to a head, as you say, you know, the uptick in enthusiasm and people were just so fired up on both sides, not just Republicans, but also Democrats. But then it waned just a little bit. But you think it's not too late for that increase to happen again?
It's not too late. And it also reminds the Republican base really what's at stake here. Because if you were outraged by the Kavanaugh confirmation process, what do you think is going to happen when Adam Schiff is in charge of the House Intel Committee and the Democrats are in charge, or if they took control of the Senate? Now, it doesn't look like they will, but if they did, look, there might very well be another Supreme Court pick in the next 2 years. We might have to go through this whole thing again. And if Republicans are not in leadership, it will be an absolute disaster. And this issue serves to remind those voters that they need to turn out and vote.
And this actually follows up Grassley's earlier referral, which concerned Julie Swetnick and her attorney, Michael Avenatti. So there have been things that have been happening on this front.
Yeah, look, it doesn't spell good news for Avenatti. But, you know, the most outrageous thing to me about this whole process is not just what they did to Judge Kavanaugh, who's just an amazing hero and public servant, but the disservice they did to the Me Too movement and future victims who have the courage to come forward that were truly victims. Right. Because now they've caused all of us to hesitate a little bit more.
Is that why we're not hearing about it so much from Democrats?
Well, it's also counter to their narrative. I mean, Democrats, you know, I was doing the cable news circuit around the Kavanaugh confirmation. They were saying 99.9% of all women tell the truth 100% of the time. You always, no matter, even if there's no evidence, every single woman has to be believed, especially as it relates to attacking GOP men. And this is counter to that narrative. But now that
this is happening, we're not hearing about it so much from them. But will it motivate them to go to the polls? We know that it might motivate Republicans, but will it motivate Democrats?
You know, I don't think there's much else that could be done to motivate them any more than they're already being motivated. We've seen enthusiasm levels on the Democratic side high since Donald Trump came down that escalator in 2016.
That's true. And he's doing the same exact thing he did in the presidential election by hitting all these states. You would think they knew that he would do that.
That's right. And that's one thing this president has that no other politician has the ability to do, and that's to turn out his base at these rallies. And you can't underestimate the significance of that because there are so many tight races that hinge on turnout.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks
we'll see what happens. Big day.